What is one of the best things about having a favorite show? Sure, the cosplays, the reaction videos, the fan fictions, and of course, the community, most of them, are great things to be involved in. But my personal favorite thing? The theories. Good fan theories take evidence from a show or background and can theorize events with relative accuracy. Of course, there are some wild theories that to others seem flimsy, ill thought out, and involve seeing hidden messages in scenes. Seriously, who sees something resembling Raven in this shot? Anyone? There are also some pretty easy theories once you look at the episodes again. Like, really, were we supposed to be surprised that she was a robot? Was this not a clue? However, there are some theories that at first seem insane, but when you step back and think about it, they do have a ring of truth about them once you start breaking them down. They seem totally possible. So in honor of them and the closing of Volume 4, I asked around on my RWBY Amiibo app for some of the craziest theories that the community has heard of. This is the 84th Wolf, and here are my top 5 RWBY theories so crazy, they might just be true. Please be aware, these are all opinion-based, so if there's a theory I miss, it is most likely because I either think they're too crazy, too normal, or I've never heard of it. Also be avoiding theories involving ships of characters, for that's a list for another time. Number 5. Whitley can summon, and has used it. This is something my friend RK201 pitched to me, and despite being highly dubious of it myself, I will admit there are some points to be made. Whitley has been trying to influence his father to give him the Schnee Company, and it's assumed he's been trying to for a long time. When Weiss returns, his chances of assuming control will have plummeted, seeing how Weiss was home and respecting her father. So this theory revolves around how he could convince his father that Weiss was unfit to run the Schnee Dust Company. During the party scene, Weiss seems to lose control and summon a boar, which proceeds to charge a guest. Now we know she was angry, and emotions can give a surge of power to things like glyphs. However, there are 2 bits of information for me that cannot be ignored. First, Weiss looks more surprised than angry when the boar is summoned. Next, despite how angry Weiss was, I don't think that she would have her summons attack a defenseless person. Now, if Whitley had the ability to summon, it could have been him. While he says he considers summoning barbaric, this does not mean that he can't summon. It is possible he cannot do it as well as Winter, so he pretends it is beneath him. Perhaps it is possible that the summons can run wild, but if you include the possibility and personality of Whitley, there is just enough evidence for me to grudgingly accept that this theory is just crazy enough to be true. And besides, Whitley's a little anyway, so anything to make me hate him more is fine with me. Number 4. Pyrrha is alive. Kind of. And RWBY was meant to become a maiden. I did think of this theory, but there are some elements that were also theorized by Cat Cool Cat, aka the Weiss Queen, so I feel justified and I can credit her as well. This theory revolves around the dream scene in Volume 4 as well as the Volume 3 finale. First, let us discuss the circumstances of Cinder receiving Amber's power. While the maiden was alive, Cinder was able to suck out about half of the power through the use of a grim parasite. Once Amber was taken to Vale, Ironwood was able to put her in stasis while studying her. It should be assumed that all of Ironwood's experience involving dust and aura did not start there, as Atlas is a kingdom dedicated to the study and advancement of technology. So here's Ironwood with dozens of experiments and top scientists working on the ability to move aura, and they are fairly certain it can be done. Possible subject Penny? But they don't know if it's possible with a live subject. So here is where the theory gets a little complex. For all intents and purposes, the process is working and Amber's aura is successful in transference, though causing great pain to Pyrrha, as the 2 auras merge and bind together. That's when Cinder comes in and kills Amber. With Amber's death, the aura no longer has her life force binding it to her, and it has not fully bonded with Pyrrha. So, just as science dictates, it flows through the path of least resistance out of Amber's body and into Cinder, where the rest of the power resided and acted as a giant magnet.
Don't be a nerd. Intellectual, okay? Thank you.
However, it also took something else. A piece of Pyrrha's aura and soul that was partially bonded and fused to her. Now Pyrrha's aura is mixed in with the maiden's power. For the sake of argument, she was partially a maiden, so the rules of maiden should apply. For both instances, when she was in the process of transferring aura, and her actual death, who would she think of? John. This explains why Ruby hears his name with her voice in her dream. But how can Ruby hear her? This one, I think, is quite simple, because she was next in line to receive the Maiden's powers. It is possible that since Amber was killed by surprise, her mind did not focus on her attacker, but on a loved one or even Pyrrha herself. Coma patients are aware of their surroundings to a limited degree, and it is possible she knew who Pyrrha was and what they were attempting. However, Cinder's current power acted as the magnet and sucked the power away. This brings me to what I think is the biggest piece of evidence. Cinder has literally refused a force of nature to naturally progress. This would be like changing the Earth's rotation, or have rivers flow uphill. It could be also what is weakening her, as the power tries to pry itself away from her and do what it wants, in this case, trickle slowly into Ruby. It is a stretch, but to me, it would explain so much.
Are you sure you didn't hit your head?
Number 3. Crow is really Ruby's dad. This is a popular one, seeing how similar Crow and Ruby are, as well as seeing their strong bond. Personally, I do think it's a good theory, but I don't want it to be true. It just seems like Crow should remain a lone wolf or a role model for his nieces. This would also conflict with some of the facts that we have grown to know, thanks to Yang's story about her journey to find her mother. However, this is where the theory could still be fact. Yang was a very young girl when Summer died, and her memory could be flawed. Ruby could have just been a constant visitor to the Xiaolong house, and after the death of Summer, became a permanent resident. Tai Yang's insistence that Ruby and Yang were sisters could have helped Ruby transition into her new home and adapt to form a stronger bond between the two children, especially with the emotional damage of both of them losing mothers, despite Ruby's being a little bit more literal than Yang's. The reason for Ruby staying with Yang could have been what we discovered in Volume 4, Crow's semblance. The theory goes something happened to Summer that caused her death, and Crow, feeling guilty because of his bad luck semblance, asked Tai to watch over Ruby to prevent anything like that from happening again. The only flaws in this theory are Yang's account, and it seems hard to believe that Crow would have allowed himself to get close to anyone he cared about, even among his team, to get married or have a kid, knowing about his semblance. Yet another theory is that Summer cheated on Tai with Crow, but this just seems out of character from what we know of these two people. Still others say he allowed Tai to adopt Ruby, since his skills as a huntsman was always in demand of long-term, nearly impossible missions. While I don't fully agree, there are definitely many similarities between the two, and a lot of differences between Ruby and Yang to dismiss it.
You two, you're gonna go far. But only if you keep learning. If you never stop moving forward.
Number 2. Penny was created to become a maiden, and the possible future of Ironwood. I touched on this a little in a previous theory, but the native son voiced something I hadn't really noticed until he pointed it out. If Ironwood was experimenting on the transferring of aura, Penny could have been the first successful experiment. While she says she is the only synthetic to be able to generate an aura, she instead could have been the first synthetic to have aura successfully transferred to her. Who Penny really was before the experiment, or where she came from, is a theory all on its own. Was she the daughter of the scientist we saw in Volume 3? Was her personality a byproduct of the transference? Is she something completely different? Wherever she came from, if Ironwood found a way to transfer an aura into an inanimate object, it would stand to reason he would want to ensure the Maiden's power stayed in control of those he trusts. If this is the case, I could definitely see Ironwood becoming a tragic hero turned villain, especially with this past volume. He has been steadily gaining power he wants to use for the greater good, but with dust embargoes, closed borders, and thinly veiled threats, he seems to be becoming more and more authoritarian, promising safety at the cost of personal freedom. Now, whether or not Penny herself would have the power, or if Ironwood would have Amber's power transferred to a new empty host, is debatable, but from what Ironwood has been telling Penny for several volumes, he wanted her to become the new maiden weapon.
You should know better than to go running around in a strange city.
I know, sir.
Penny, your time will come.
They're not sure if I'm ready yet. One day, it will be my job to save the world.
Penny, what are you talking about? Save the world from what? We're in a time of peace.
That's not what Mr. Ironwood said.
Creating a machine, one that has unlimited amount of stamina, was inconspicuous, and possessed great physical strength would certainly keep maidens safer, but it would also create what could potentially be the most dangerous stealth weapons in Remnant.
What need would Atlas have for a soldier disguised as an innocent little girl? I don't think the Grimm can tell the difference.
The ethical implications by themselves raise many questions, and whether or not Ironwood would force the issue of containment remains a mystery.
That's
Classified.
wrong.
Number 1. Oz and Salem are the brothers from Crow's story. I promise you, while I did think this up myself, I did not put it at the number 1 spot because I thought of it. I truly believe it's one of the craziest theories I have, but it's also a most likely theory. We got a little taste of religion in Volume 4 with Crow talking to Team Ranger about how man and Grimm had come to be. An all-powerful creator and destroyer taking it in turns to build and raise the world they lived on. If you had an ultimate good god and an ultimate evil god, do you really need to look further than the two leaders of each side of RWBY? When we learn the story of the Maidens, we also learn most, if not all, stories from Remnant were real, but facts had faded into myth and legend. There was once a theory going around stating Oz was the old man from the Four Maidens tale, but what if he was older than that?
RWBY, I've made more mistakes than any man, woman, and child on this planet.
It's not every day that friends are able to come together like this. Time has a way of testing our bonds, but it's nights like these that can help keep them stronger than ever. Nights like these are ones we'll never forget.
Would you believe me if I told you that one's been around since I was a boy?
You're not that old, Professor.
Well, would you believe me if I told you it was true?
He is always talking about his great age, and we know he lives on through other humans. Salem herself looks like a Grimm, so here's my question. If these guys were real and lived on, wouldn't they want to inhabit the bodies of the creatures they created? Salem's hatred for Oz and Oz's desire to teach and ensure peace certainly describes the two gods from the story. Now, why are they both brothers in Crow's story? Much like the Yang example in Theory 3, details were simply lost to time and retelling. Somewhere in this story, these two siblings became enemies again, and now all of Remnant hangs in the balance.
This is the beginning of the end, Ozpin. And I can't wait to watch you burn.
This wraps up my very first top 5 video. Do you agree with my list? Are there any that you heard that left you with a nagging feeling? Like, comment, and subscribe for more. This is EA4th Wolf, and I'll see you guys next time.